Sometimes a goodbye isn't whispered, it's shouted through broken hearts and shattered trust. Those would be the words to explain countless breakups around the globe, but on one unforgettable day, they were for Kody Brown, the lady who surprised millions of fans when she chose to finally leave Kody Brown. Fans had watched for years, bringing sister wives into their homes week after week, expecting to get a glimpse into the life of a polygamous family attempting to live in faith, love, and harmony. It all revolved around Kody, the father figure, and his four wives, Mary, Janelle, Christine, and Robyn. They were more than a reality television family to viewers. They were representatives of sacrifice, compromise, and the fight to keep love alive in many hearts. But off-camera, off-stage from the post-family gatherings, something was simmering beneath the surface. The fissures that had lain hidden for years were beginning to make their presence felt. Christine was always the bright, bubbly one. She had a radiant laugh, a comforting presence, and an energy that kept the family on solid ground. Fans adored her for her honesty and her way of bringing light to tight spots. But even the brightest lights get dim when left in the dark for too long. Since the beginning seasons, Christine tended to get left behind. She desired partnership, love, and respect, but what she got was competing with Kody for his attention in a marriage that was growing increasingly one-sided performance rather than a genuine connection. The fiery start of Christine's farewell didn't come overnight. It was not the result of any one argument, any one betrayal, or any one moment of disillusionment. It was a tempest that had been gathering over the years, cloud by cloud, till finally it burst. Picture this. A woman who had invested more than 25 years of her life in a marriage, only to find one day that she no longer existed for the man she had previously loved. She wasn't important to him. She wasn't important to him. She wasn't his equal. She was, in her own terms, just going through the motions. And fans knew it. Season upon season, we viewed the tension build. Christine's smile grew thinner. Her voice contained more cracks, and her eyes revealed the weariness of a person burdened with a load too heavy to bear. It was viewing a train wreck in slow motion. You knew it was inevitable, but you couldn't turn away. The last explosion was not in fire and fury, but in Christine's silent choice to fight for herself. She no longer had to scream, beg, or fight for Kody's love. She just chose herself. But don't be fooled, this was no gentle farewell. This was the sort of farewell that stunned a whole family, a farewell that tore through millions of viewers who believed they had witnessed it all. When Christine announced that she was leaving, fans didn't just see the end of a marriage. They saw the collapse of the family they had followed for more than a decade. They saw the empire of sister wives crack open, exposing the raw truth of what happens when love, trust, and respect disappear. Christine's farewell was one of the most shocking moments in reality TV because it wasn't scripted, it happened. It was raw. It was real.
And that's why viewers couldn't get enough of it. They were called the laughing Christine, the dreaming Christine, the hoping Christine who wanted a big family with much love. And they couldn't help but notice the Christine who finally reached her breaking point and said, "No more." It was explosive, not because it was dramatic, but because it was courageous.
Millions of women recognized themselves in Christine's narrative. They recognized the woman who lingered too long, the woman who gave too much, the woman who loved without loving in return. And they saw also the strength of the walkaway, the bravery required to finally prioritize yourself after years of being disregarded. Christine's fiery start wasn't merely the start of her farewell to Kody, it was the start of her liberation, the start of her new life, the start of her new life, the start of her reclaiming her voice. And for the audience, it was the start of a tale they would never forget. Because on that day, Christine didn't just break away from Kody Brown. She broke away from the idea that love means sacrificing yourself until there's nothing left. She broke away from the pain, the loneliness, and the silence that had defined her marriage for years. Her goodbye was loud, even when it was spoken softly. It was powerful, even when it was said through tears. And it was unforgettable even for people who had never lived her tale. This was Christine's explosive start, the moment that transformed her from a secondary character on Sister Wives into the heroine of her own tale. The moment that made viewers cheer, sob, and gasp all at once. The moment that turned a reality TV episode into a global dialogue about love, respect, and strength. Because sometimes the most explosive goodbyes aren't the angry ones. They're the ones where a person gets up and is like, I deserve better. And that is exactly what Kody Brown did. If Christine's farewell was explosive, then the years leading up to it were like a slow burn, a smoldering fire under embers, quietly devouring her spirit until there was nothing but hurt remaining. To make sense of Christine's decision to leave, we first need to comprehend what she went through for so long. Because her account wasn't about a single fight, a single betrayal, or a single wake-up call. It was about years of feeling invisible, unwanted, and not worthy in the very same marriage she had committed her life to. When Sister Wives fans first met Kody Brown, she was bright, cheerful, and perpetually optimistic. She had a knack for breaking the tension whenever the moment got tight.
She was the tradition-loving wife, the heart and soul mother of her kids, and the one whose world always seemed to spin with joy over the small stuff. What most didn't see, though, was how much that smile cost her. Christine's brightness was a facade, a one she donned to hide the isolation that seeped into her heart year after year.
As the cameras recorded family meals and shared moments, Kody frequently felt like a stranger in her own home. She once confessed on the show, her eyes filled with tears, I feel like I don't matter. I feel like I'm not important to him anymore. Those were more than temporary words of sorrow. They were expressions of years of suppressed pain. Living in a polygamous marriage is never easy. For wives, one man, several dozen children. That's a formula for endless balancing, compromise, and sacrifice. And Kody was no stranger to sacrifice. But what does it do when the scales tip too far to one side? As the years passed, what Kody herself couldn't overlook was something that fans saw: Kody's increasing attention on Robyn, his youngest wife. And though love and attention poured Robyn's way, Kody found herself in the background, waiting for table scraps of love. In one heartfelt admission, Kody disclosed that she wanted a romance-filled marriage, partnership, and equal love, but she received coldness instead. Polygamy wasn't merely about sharing a husband for her. Polygamy was about inching by, piece, losing him slowly until nothing was left for her. Years of unspoken pain weigh more heavily than a single loud fight. It's that kind of pain that permeates your daily life. Kody experienced it when she noticed Kody spending time with Robyn's children. She experienced it in family meetings where her voice didn't count as much. She experienced it in the quiet nights when there was no partnership, no intimacy, and no love remaining between her and Kody. At one time, Kody had learned that her marriage was no longer even physical, that Kody had informed her that he wasn't interested in an intimate relationship any longer. For a wife who had spent years putting into her marriage, this was like knives. It wasn't rejection, it was erasure. One of the reasons Kody's story struck such a powerful chord with fans was because it mirrored the experiences of countless women. How many people have stayed in relationships where they felt invisible? How many have kept smiling, cooking meals, raising kids, and keeping the peace while their own hearts slowly broke inside? Kody became an icon, a reflection of the silent suffering that so many experience in silence. And each time she courageously expressed her hurt on camera, thousands of online followers resonated back. That's me. I know that feeling. That shared connection made Kody's experience all the more tragic and all the more compelling. Silent pain does not ever go away. It compounds. Brick by brick, day by day, until you're standing in front of a wall too tall to climb. For Kody, every ignored conversation, every cold shoulder, every moment where she felt second class in her own marriage became another brick in that wall. She kept trying, smiling, hoping, praying, but the wall only grew higher. Until one day, she found herself on one side of the wall and Kody on the other. And there was no bridge connecting them anymore. Pain can shatter someone, but pain can sometimes give rise to strength. After years of uncomplaining endurance, Kody finally heard a new voice within her. A voice that told her, you deserve better. Your children need to see you happy. This cannot be the rest of your life. It was not an easy voice to listen to. For Kody had grown up in a world where sacrifice was something to be admired, where perseverance was something to be honored, and where leaving was near impossible. But even in those traditions, there was one thing that Kody's heart understood: love without respect is not love. and realizing this planted the seed of her goodbye. Christine's years of quiet suffering weren't merely about her marriage. They were about how her whole family unit started to fall apart. She saw the relationship between the wives falter, saw Kody's focus become more fragmented, and saw her children sense the withdrawal. Mothers will put up with just about anything for themselves, but when their children begin to feel the fissures, that is where their patience runs out. Christine could not stand the idea of her children growing up thinking this was love, cold, one-sided, and empty. That storm, gestating for years, was on the verge of bursting. Christine's quiet agony was not in vain. Each tear, each lonely night, each moment of invisibility made her stronger than she even realized. All the years of pain reworked her from being one who remained quiet to being one who was ready to be heard. And when she finally confronted Kody and declared, I can't do this anymore, it wasn't the voice of a single wife walking out on a marriage. It was the voice of every woman who had ever felt invisible. Those years of unspoken suffering laid the groundwork for one of the strongest goodbyes reality television and the world has ever seen. Christine's walk through pain wasn't merely her tale. It became your tale, and it became mine. And that's why when she finally walked away, millions weren't merely stunned. They were inspired. Because out of years of quiet, Christine found her voice. Each tale of heartbreak has a breaking point. It's the moment when quiet is too deafening, when endurance is exhausted, and even the toughest heart says, no more. For Kody Brown, that was after being burdened with silent pain for years. If Session 2 was one of silent agony, Session 3 is the day Christine could no longer remain silent. Christine had suffered years of being pushed to the side, but it was most painful to her to see her children feel the weight of their father's absence. She had always said to herself, if I can endure the pain, I'll remain. But when her children started realizing Kody's absence, Christine's motherly protective nature went into full fire. She could not stand the idea of her children growing up thinking that love was conditional, they were not good enough for their dad's time, or that being married equated to being alone. This was not just heartbreak for Christine. This was about the future of her children, their emotional health, their self-worth, their idea of family. And that was the flame that lit the fire that led her to the breaking point. The reality was, Christine's relationship with Kody was not just lacking, it was utterly empty. At one time, Christine candidly exposed that intimacy had gone out of her marriage. Kody had distanced himself, leaving her with words every wife never wants to receive. I'm not interested in having that kind of relationship with you anymore. To Christine, words were not mere rejection. They were affirmation of all she feared, that she no longer counted, not as a wife, not as a partner, not even as a woman. A loveless marriage is like a house without walls. It may hold up for some time, but eventually the storm will shred it to pieces. Christine knew she had been dwelling on the remnants of a relationship that had passed. At other times, clarity happens unexpectedly, like a flash of lightning during a storm. For Christine, it arrived in one of the show's most memorable moments. She confronted Kody, her voice shaking but resolute, when she said to him, I can't do this anymore. I deserve better. My kids deserve better. Those words weren't sentences. They were decades of suffering boiled down into one moment of reality. It was like Christine finally opened a door she'd been gazing at for decades, the door to freedom, to self-worth, to a life where she counted. The expression on Kody's face spoke volumes. He hadn't counted on it. He hadn't counted on it. He hadn't thought she would ever leave. And that surprise made the moment all the stronger. The instant Christine made her breaking point, fans everywhere felt it. Social media erupted in support. Women posted things like, I've been there. I know exactly how Christine feels. This is the most powerful thing I've ever seen on TV. She finally spoke what all of us wanted her to years ago. It wasn't reality TV anymore. It was real life, and it resonated with millions of people. Christine's voice was now their voice. But getting to that breaking point did not happen overnight. Christine had been bearing the burden of disappointment for years. She had attempted to speak with Kody. She had attempted to improve things. She had attempted to remain for the children. But those attempts, over time, became shackles. She understood she wasn't living, she was existing. The point of breaking wasn't surrendering. It was releasing something that was already lost. It was an emotional showdown when Christine finally confronted Kody, and it wasn't a conversation. She spoke the truth he did not want to hear. She said to him that she was no longer going to continue in a loveless marriage. She said to him that she could not keep pretending before the camera for the family or the world. Her bravery at that moment was awe-inspiring. She didn't scream. She didn't scream. She didn't crumple into fragments. Instead, she stood firm, with tears brimming in her eyes, and stated the truth with conviction. That serene strength is what made her breaking point so memorable. It wasn't theatrical pandemonium, it was powerful control. Christine's breaking point might be described in one word: enough. She had given enough. She had waited enough. She had heard enough. And now it was time to choose herself. That's the true beauty of Christine's story. Her breaking point wasn't rage. Her breaking point wasn't revenge. Her breaking point was self-respect. It was reclaiming her worth. It was making a statement to her children and to the world that nobody deserves to live in a relationship where they are not seen or loved. Since Christine hit her limit, things were never the same. The dynamics of the Brown family changed. Kody was no longer in control of the story. For years, he had been the focal point of the show, but now that Christine had found the courage, she became the essence of the show. The narrative ceased to be about polygamy and began to be about a woman's right to happiness. Her breaking point was a turning point for sister wives and for Christine as well. Christine's breaking point counted because it wasn't only her tale. It was all of our tale. It was about every individual who lingered in a relationship too long. Every mom who gave herself up until she had nothing left. Every woman who felt unseen in her marriage. Her narrative wasn't perfected.
It wasn't flawless. It was rough, raw, and human. And that's what made it gorgeous. With walking to her breaking point, Christine didn't merely end a marriage, she began a new life. She proved that it is possible to leave, even when it seems impossible. She proved that breaking can also equal healing.
And that's why fans will never forget the day that Christine finally stood and said, "I deserve better. My kids deserve better. Enough is enough." Christine's breaking point wasn't the end of her journey. It was the start of her freedom. And it was the moment that transformed her from a silent sufferer into a voice of strength for herself, for her children, and for millions of fans who saw their own struggles mirrored in hers.
Goodbyes are never easy. Sometimes they're boisterous, shouts, anger, and slamming doors. Other times they're soft, whispered through sobs, weighed down with quiet. Christine Brown's goodbye to Kody Brown fell somewhere in between. It wasn't explosive, but it was final. It wasn't angry, but it was unshakable. And that made it unforgettable.
Christine stood in the house where she had raised her children, the house that had once been full of laughter, dinners at the table, and even dreams of forever. But now it was full of boxes. Each item she wrapped and packed held a memory. The toys that her children used to play with. The kitchen utensils she used to prepare infinite family meals. The framed photographs that narrated a love story of oneness, a story that no longer existed. Every box wasn't packed with objects. It was packed with farewells. The farewell to a husband who had lost sight of her. The farewell to a marriage that had been dead for years before she left. The farewell to the part of herself who had remained silent for so long. The evening before she departed, Christine sat by herself. The children slept, the home was still, but her heart pounded. She considered the little girl she used to be, the girl who envisioned a large family, forever love, a marriage in which sacrifice was real. Then she considered the woman she had become, the woman who had sacrificed everything, only to have nothing given back to her. Tears dripped, but they were not tears of agony. They were tears of liberation. Christine was aware that tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, she would at last choose herself. The goodbye day was not filled with loud screams or out-of-control pandemonium. It was serene, but it was dense. Christine closed the last box with tape and glanced around the house. The walls echoed with recollections. Her children's laughter, family discussions, times of celebration. But those echoes also held rose, rejection, and isolation for years. She spoke softly, nearly to herself. "It's not leaving. It's beginning again. Then she took up her keys, went to the door, and turned the handle for the final time. As the door shut behind her, it wasn't just metal and wood shutting. It was decades of misery shutting as well. One of the most heart-wrenching moments in this chapter was Christine's talk with Kody prior to leaving. She explained to him, with her voice firm yet cracking, "I can't do this any longer. I deserve better for myself and better for my children." Kody, stunned and protecting himself, attempted to reason. He blamed. He denied. But Christine did not falter. She had spent years being the one to bend, to compromise, to keep silent. But no longer. That moment was not about revenge. It was not about rage. It was not about rage. It was about truth. And Christine told her truth with a passion that destroyed the foundation of their relationship. Audience members who watched that moment could sense the gravity of it. It was the culmination of over 25 years of sacrifice, ending with one woman's choice to finally let go. When the episode originally aired, fans internationally were glued to their television screens. Some wept along with Christine. Some applauded her bravery. Some posted their own tales on the internet, how they too had left a loveless marriage, how they too had at last said, "Enough is enough." For countless others, Christine's farewell wasn't about the Browns. It was about us. That's what made the farewell scene go viral. It wasn't just about the Browns. It was about all of us. Christine's farewell wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning. Driving away from the house, the burden on her shoulders seemed to dissipate. For the first time in decades, she was living for herself, not for someone else's okay. She was no longer fighting for crumbs of love. She was living for happiness. She later explained in interviews, "It's not about walking away from family. It's about walking toward happiness." And that's what she did. Christine's farewell was symbolic. It was symbolic for strength, the bravery to depart even when it's frightening. It was symbolic for self-respect, the conviction that each individual deserves to be loved and partnered. It was symbolic for freedom, the point at which a woman reclaims her life after decades of being silenced. Whenever fans rewatched the scene, they weren't seeing Christine so much as they were seeing themselves. They were seeing what it looks like to finally hold your head up after all these years being knocked down. The reason why Christine's farewell struck fans so hard is that it wasn't dramatic or flashy, it was authentic. She didn't require yelling matches or bursting fights. She didn't require over-the-top background music. Her soft choice to leave was more powerful than any fight could ever be. Because the truth is, the loudest goodbyes aren't necessarily loud ones. They're the softly spoken ones, but lived with every ounce of loudness in our hearts. Christine's goodbye was precisely that. Her leaving wasn't just altered her life. It altered the entire Brown family. The dynamic between the wives changed. Kody's place as the center of the family fell apart. The fate of sister wives itself was rocked. Christine's goodbye stole the show. And the waves of that moment continue to ripple through her family, viewers, and even Christine as she constructed a new life. And as Christine stepped into her new life, fans were treated to something amazing. She didn't just make it through. She flourished. Her goodbye gave her the freedom to find joy again, to laugh again, to dream again. She showed the world that endings can be beginnings, that pain can turn into power, and that saying goodbye can be the bravest thing you'll ever do. Christine's goodbye moment will be etched forever in the annals of reality TV history as the most emotional and heart-wrenching in its entirety. But above all, it would be remembered as a tale of one woman's strength in putting herself first. For in the end, her goodbye was not an end. It was a statement that she was important. Her children were important.
Happiness was important. And that, at last, after all these years of going unnoticed, Christine Brown was finally free.
Ends hurt, but they paved the way for beginnings too. For Christine Brown, leaving Kody wasn't the end of her fairy tale. It was the beginning of the most gorgeous chapter yet. For years, she had existed in a world where she felt her value attached to someone else's regard. For years, she had invested herself in a marriage that withheld much from her. And for years, she had been instructed to remain quiet, to continue smiling, to settle for less than she was owed. But now, with each step ahead, Christine was showing that the blackest nights can yield to the sunniest dawns. She left and moved to Utah, a place that held comfort and potential. It wasn't about getting a new address. It was about getting a new life. Her new house wasn't luxurious or flashy, but it was hers. Every choice about it, where to place the couch, how to paint the walls, which photos to hang, was hers. And that very act of making a home was a metaphor for something far greater. She was making a new self. No longer did she need to seek permission. No longer did she need to struggle to be heard. This time, she filled the walls with her voice. One of the strongest aspects of Christine's new chapter was how it transformed the way she connected with her children. They didn't merely look at her as mom. They looked at her as a role model of courage. Her children witnessed the strength it took to walk out. They witnessed the courage it took to begin anew. And most importantly, they witnessed her choose happiness, not for herself, but for them as well. Christine used to say leaving wasn't solely about her. It was about demonstrating to her children what self-respect is. And in this new life, she embodied that reality every single day. Her kids had always been her inspiration, but now they became her motivation. Christine's journey didn't go unnoticed. Millions of fans watched her transformation unfold on Sister Wives. And much to everyone's surprise, Christine wasn't only a cast member, but the soul of the show. Fans weren't only invested in the romance of the breakup, they were inspired by how Christine conducted herself after it. Her confidence, her humor, her joy. Christine transformed from being the forgotten wife to the fan favorite. Fans clogged up social media with goodwill, cheering for her every move. She became a symbol in a sense, not only of women in polygamy, but of anyone who had ever found himself or herself trapped in a relationship that did not appreciate him or her. What made Christine's new start all the more incredible was what followed: love. She had felt for years like she wasn't good enough for Kody. She felt love was a sacrifice for which she never received reciprocation. She felt romance was a fantasy reserved for someone else. And then, unexpectedly, along came David Woolley. David wasn't ideal, but he was ideal for her. He made her laugh, he celebrated her, he encouraged her, and made her feel loved in a way she hadn't felt in decades. Christine herself confessed that it was weird to be loved so much after so long, but she took it with an open heart. Fans saw her shine once more. Her smile was brighter, her laughter was louder, her confidence was stronger. Christine had transformed from heartbreak to mending, from rejection to romance. And it was evidence that sometimes the love you should have found you only after you were strong enough to leave the love that had hurt you. Christine's new beginning wasn't about romance. It was about resurrection. She began to see more of the world, experience new things, and live with a freedom she had not known in years. She was no longer just getting through each day. She was living. She shot cooking videos online, bearing her passion for food. She posed happy posts with her children and grandchildren. She proved the world that there could be laughter, adventure, and a second lease on life after heartbreak. Christine wasn't simply urging her followers to pick happiness. She was demonstrating how. The ripple effect of Christine's saga extended far beyond reality television. Her courage inspired thousands of fans to share their own stories of leaving unhealthy relationships. Women wrote online about how Christine gave them the strength to finally walk away. Others said she showed them that age doesn't matter. You can always start fresh. Christine didn't just heal herself, she helped others heal too. That's why her new beginning mattered so much. It wasn't just personal, it was universal. Christine's lesson is one we can all learn. You are never too old to begin again. You are never too shattered to mend. You are never too caught to be set free. Her path from rejection to rebirth is evidence that endings are not failures. They are possibilities. And occasionally, the boldest thing you can do is back away from what isn't working for you so you can walk towards what is. Today, Christine Brown is a new woman. She's not the wife who was ignored. She's not the wife who was ignored. She's not the woman who settled for less. She's not the ghost in the background. She is Christine Brown, a mother, a partner, a survivor, a thriver. Her laughter rings out louder than her tears ever did. Her smile speaks of freedom. Her new life speaks of hope. And to her million or so admirers, Christine is more than a reality TV star. She's the living testament that happiness lies not in another person, it's constructed in you. Christine's path is a reminder to us all of this incredible truth. Sometimes saying goodbye is the only way to hello the life you deserve. Sometimes letting go is the only way to walk toward happiness. And sometimes beginning again is the boldest, loveliest thing you'll ever do. As the fans, we didn't only see Christine walk away from a marriage, we saw her start anew. And her fresh start glows as a beacon to anyone listening today. Regardless of your history, regardless of your hurt, your new beginning awaits too. Because as Christine demonstrated, freedom isn't the end of the book. It's the beginning of the best one so far.